So thank you, Mayor, and thank you everybody for being here. I have talked about this so much that I've really stayed away from prepared speeches and want to speak from the heart and kind of whether I'm a community leader or a public safety leader, I don't even know what I am anymore in this whole scheme of COVID-19. I mean, it's obviously outside of what police departments and police chiefs normally deal with, but certainly we've been thrusted into that. So I did not prepare a statement on purpose by design, but I have listened to some of the statements that have been given out. And one thing that strikes me is in this particular scenario, semantics are critically important. And some of the things that I've already heard that give me pause and I think are really hopefully at the root of what we can drive out today are the idea of lumping second homeowners and community and visitors and part-time and short-term rentals all together in one bucket. These are all independent decisions, independent people. We need to be talking about those populations separately with regards to what we're really trying to do, which is to drive down the spread rate of COVID-19. So it's important not to just lump that in naturally and say, yeah, second homeowners, short-term rentals, it's all the same. It's not the same. They're completely different. They're constitutionally different. And we need to be very cautious to not just make these big, bold statements that just kind of allow us to not dissect what that is from a community conversation. That's the first. The second that I hear all the time, I'm guilty of this myself, is there is no shelter-in-place order that's currently been issued by the state. It's a stay-at-home order. These are FEMA terms. They're very different. Shelter-in-place is something that's used very specifically for certain scenarios, and it's not the same as stay-at-home. Stay-at-home is a much softer approach. And this goes back to, again, really the expectation we're setting with our broader sense of community, meaning Northern California, and saying, what do we expect you to do? What was the governor's intent? What was Governor Newsom trying to get across with his stay-at-home order and how he talked about the social growth of that and the social pressure of it? That's very different than enforcement pressure and a shelter in place. And that becomes imperative as we start to dive into the conversation to understand really what law enforcement's role is going to be, where the constitutional issues are. It's a very layered and nuanced conversation. Then the last thing that I heard that I want to make sure we kind of keep in perspective is the visitation numbers and the short-term rentals. Now, I'm not a short-term rental expert in the town of Truckee. I know I use very broad numbers. We have approximately 1,500 of them. We're currently receiving complaints on about 2%. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 30, we're getting complaints on. The police department, because of wildfire evacuations, has done a tremendous amount of research into our loading or our visitor population, how many people are here, how many vehicles are here. We do that through car counts at different points of the year, particularly during the summer months. It's already been 3 minutes. I'll still maybe 30 seconds of Dave's time. And we're looking at a lot of data, whether it's cell phone data, the vehicle loading, our short-term rentals, how many people anecdotally are on the street. And we don't think that our loading is any higher than 20%. 20% meaning that 20% of the second homes are occupied, not a 20% increase in our population. So I don't even want to call them orders. I mean, they're two different directives, they're two different missions. A shelter in place is something that's an imminent threat. So there's a hurricane coming, there's a particular safety issue in a neighborhood, that's shelter in place. Don't come outside, stay in your house. A stay-at-home order, if you go back and look at what the governor said, it had nothing to do with enforcement. It's unenforceable. It's a legal mess. As a law enforcement officer of 25 years looking at elements of a crime in penal codes, the executive order that the governor issued is nothing like that. So this expectation and the false expectation that it's set up from the community to think that I have some kind of legal authority to go out and shut down highways and stop people from coming in the area is absolutely a false expectation. A stay-at-home order was something that was created by the governor's office to try and encourage social pressure towards our behavioral norms. And that's how he intended for it to grow. He said that since the beginning, and that stays true. So although there are some public health directives out there, we're looking at El Dorado County and holding them up on a pedestal. It's completely unconstitutional. Matter of fact, the sheriff came out today and said he wouldn't be enforcing the El Dorado order. Placer County's letter that came out from the health director was a letter, it was a request. That's not an order. There's a distinct difference. I'm back to the semantics matter here. And so we have these expectations that Nevada County, the town of Truckee, the leadership is failing. They're not doing what Placer and El Dorado are doing. That's completely and patently false. We're following the stay-at-home order the way that the governor is. There's certain issues with that. There's certain technicalities that make it almost logistically impossible to enforce. That's unfortunate, but that's what it is. We're looking at all these variables and trying to control everybody else's behavior. The real mission here is to stomp down COVID-19, not stomp down second homeowners or visitors to this area. We need to refocus our attention on what our actions are, what the actions are of our families, and the actions are of our friends. Because I'm here to tell you from a law enforcement perspective, I see as many locals doing things against this stay-at-home order as I do second homeowners. So I'm not necessarily pointing fingers. I want people to turn the mirror, look in the mirror, and really try and do the best they can to attack COVID-19 from a public safety perspective.